Welcome to the Chess Library. I'm so happy you wanted to join me for a study session in this old and secret library filled with chess books like these. This library contains every chess book ever written in all languages and in all editions. You'll find books on openings, middle game, and endgame techniques. You'll also find historical chess books on world champions and famous chess tournaments. Of course, there are also several chessboards like this in the library and chess clocks, because players from all over the world, they want to come here to study chess or even play a match. Actually, sitting just next to me at the other table, I can spot two grandmasters playing each other. If you focus, I think you can hear them play. Well, there are hundreds of thousands of books, and I already found a small selection for us to look at today. If we should get bored with these books, I don't think we will, but if we do, I can go and find some more. But let's take a look at the first book I found. Here we see one of the many books. This one is in German. It's called Schach-Weltmeister Garry Kasparov. And I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Maybe your German is better than mine. I do not know a lot of German, but I wanted to show you this book anyways, because it has a lot of pictures in it that I wanted to show you. Look at the chess theme. Once I open the book, let's see what we can find. Oh, here we have a picture of Garry Kasparov from a press conference. This is from he was pretty young. Oh, this is also a great picture. Here we see a young Kasparov sitting next to a woman. This is his mother. She was from Armenia, and she was a very great support to him. She took him to a lot of chess tournaments when he was a child, and she was a very important figure in his life. Let's see what else we can find in here. Oh, this is also a very big moment in chess. Here we see one of the many matches between Karpov and Kasparov. They played several World Chess Championships together, but Kasparov came out superior. Here we have another world champion. We actually have two. Of course we have Kasparov sitting here, but do you see this man standing over the chessboard? This is Spassky. He was world champion before Bobby Fischer. Bobby Fischer defeated him in Reykjavik in 1972. Oh, and here, speaking of the famous Bobby Fischer, we have a picture of him here. I think he's on his way to a press conference. And this is from Reykjavik, 1972, when he became the new world chess champion. Oh, so many chess positions as well. We could of course take a look at those too, but oh, look at these. Now, here we have a big picture of Garry Kasparov in front of the chess pieces. We also have that here, but here there's a very nice detail I wanted you to see. Do you see that he's wearing a watch on his arm? He became very famous for that because he got a habit where when he got a winning position, he would take off his watch and place it next to the chessboard, and that would intimidate his opponents a lot. Portish and Spassky, lots of famous players. But I was looking for someone in particular. Let's see if I can find him. Oh, here we have. This is Mikhail Tal. He was a world champion, I think in 1960 and 1960 to 1961. One of my favorite players of all times. He was called the Magician from Riga. That's where he was from. And he was a wizard on the chessboard. He would often make beautiful sacrifices. Let me just see. Oh, this is also an amazing picture. Because here we have 3 world champions in one picture. We have Karpov sitting here. We have Kasparov standing here. And then we have Tal. Here he's older. This is from 1980. And you can see that I think he looks a little bit like Einstein if you've seen pictures of him. But he was very charismatic, also in his old days. Yeah, I hope you liked this book. We didn't get to read so much, but we got to see some very lovely chess pictures, I think. Let's take a look at the next one. I can show you all the books I have for us. So you can see the selection of books that I picked for today. Next time we can find some other books to look at. Do you recognize this book? Maybe you've seen it before because I actually have this book myself. And this is called 1001 Chess Exercises for Club Players. And I actually thought, because I have a goal to finish all 1001 puzzles. And so far I think I've done 4. So I think we should take a little bit of time now to see if we can solve maybe 1 or 2 puzzles before moving on to the next book. And I just started from the beginning. So I've done puzzle 1, 2, and 3, and 4. I recognize number 4. So let's put up the next position. I can see that it's going to be white to move here. There are many pieces on the board. These pawns have been taken. Then this bishop is here and this knight is here. Yes, this is how the white pieces are set up. Here we go. And black is also castled kingside. These pawns have been taken and these are on the light squares. Oh, that's actually pieces are set up. Let me just check. Yes, this looks correct. So whenever I solve chess tactics, chess puzzles, I write down in my notebook. Today I brought this beautiful pen with me with a feather. And I'll go to a blank page in this notebook. And this is puzzle number 5. So I'll write down 5. Oh, this pen is... Oh yeah, now it's working. 5. And then let's take a look at the position. The first thing that I notice when I look at this position is the fact that black is not so developed. All of these pieces, they're still on the back rank, whereas the white pieces, they have all been developed to the center of the board. Both kings look pretty safe. I would say they have castled, and they have this shield of pawns in front of them. But I do think this puzzle will have to do with punishing black for not having developed in time. And in these types of puzzles, we should always look for forcing moves. This means moves that are captures, moves that are checks. Let's see if we have one of those available. I can see we can capture the knight here in f6. That's a capture and it's also a check. If we capture this knight, black will capture back. They will most likely take with the bishop to not ruin their shield of pawns in front of the king. And here, I was thinking of taking on h7 with the bishop because it's a capture and it's a check. But I don't think the sacrifice works, because if I take and black captures back, I could of course capture the black queen, but she is protected. And if I give a check with the queen, I think the black king can just go back. So I don't really believe in this move. However, I still think capturing the knight on the first move might be the right first move. Oh, maybe I have an idea now. Because if there aren't any checks or captures that look good, we can look for threats. And when looking for threats, we should look for undefended pieces. There's a saying that loose pieces drop off. And if we look at black's pieces, we can see that there's one piece that's not defended. That's the rook in the corner. And if we threaten that rook with bishop e4, the rook can only go here. But that would allow us, then the knight on b8 would be undefended, and the other bishop would go down and capture that knight. Black could of course exchange queens first, but it doesn't really help them solving the problem of the undefended rook on a8. So I think this is our solution. And I will write this down. So the first move we wanted to play was knight takes f6 check. Then black took back with the bishop. Bishop takes f6. And then we played bishop e4. And we could stop here, but we could maybe just play this move. piece, b8, and we won a knight. Okay, great. I think we can solve one more, don't you think? Yeah, I think let's see if we can find the next one in the book. So I can get closer to the 1001 solved puzzles. Okay, once again it's white to move. Let me just set up the position. The rooks, they are here and here, and those are all the white pieces. Black has a knight here on f6, and oh, where did I put the black queen? She's here. The black queen is here, king is here, and there's no bishop. The two rooks, they're here and they're here. Let me just check that everything is correct. Yes, looks like it. Okay. So, once again, it gives me a hint. It says away plus material. Sure, I should look for something that distracts one of black's pieces and also wins material for white. And this is puzzle number 6. Okay. Are there any good checks? I could, of course, give the check down here with the queen, but then the knight would be able to capture, so that's probably not the move. I could swing this rook over to h8, but black will capture. And when the other rook then goes down and give a check, black can just go back. And all I've accomplished in that line is to lose a rook. So I don't think that's the solution either. So if it's not a check, it's maybe a capture. I could... Not so many things I can capture, actually. The only thing I can capture is the knight on f6. But taking this knight would lose... the queen, and I don't want to lose my queen, so what could it be instead? Then we're gonna look for threats. Are there any undefended pieces? Well, not really. There's a pawn over here, but it's probably not just winning a pawn, and even if I attacked it, I think black would just be able to defend it. Also, black might start giving me checks down here. Maybe it's not so dangerous. So if it's not a check and if it's not a capture, we should look for threats again, like in the last puzzle. And here we can threaten the black queen. She's not undefended, but even if the queen is defended, it's often quite serious with an attack on her. So I'm thinking maybe bishop e4. And the reason that I'm suggesting this move, I actually feel confident enough to write it down. Bishop e4. Black cannot take with the queen. Or they could, but then we will take back and we would win a queen. Even if it cost us a bishop and a rook, that's usually a good trade. So if black doesn't want to lose their queen, it is possible that they give us a check first, but I think we can survive that just fine by going to one of these squares. So let's say that they take the bishop on e4. Knight captures e4. Then I think now we have a pretty smart move, because now the queens are attacking each other. We could of course capture the black queen immediately, but then the black king would be able to recapture. So can you find the move to prevent black from capturing back on g6 next move? Once again, look for checks. Yes, we can play rook h1 check. That's a beautiful magnetic move. It works like a magnet. Rook h8 check. Black king must take. It's the only legal move. King takes h8. And now we can take the queen on g6, and black cannot capture back. Queen captures g6. And this should be much better for white, because the queen is stronger than a knight and a rook. And also we have several threats in this position. We're threatening to go rook d8. That would be checkmate. We're also threatening to take this knight. And we're also threatening to take here on h5. So with more material and at least 3 checks, I think we have found the solution. And let's check if we found the correct solutions for both of these puzzles. And then we can move on to the next chess book. Where are the solutions? They're over here in the back. Okay. Puzzle number 5. That was the first one. Knight takes f6 check, clearing the e4 square for the bishop. And then bishop takes f6, bishop e4. And then, okay, the book suggests that black should play e5, but it was still winning for white. So we did find at least the first 2 correct moves here. And then in the next one we also found it. Bishop e4 check, knight takes e4, and then rook h8 check. And then when the king capture, we could take the queen on g6. So we got that one right as well. And now I only need to do another 995 puzzle before we're done with this chess book. Okay, I hope you liked it. Let's take a look at the next book I have for us. Here we have a book called Chess Queens, and I was so compelled to grab this book because it reminds me of my own name, because I call myself Study Queen and I play chess. I also really like the hand here on the front, correcting the E, and the hand even has nail polish on the fingers. This is a book on the most prominent and strongest female players in chess history. And there are many very strong and very interesting women described in this book, but I wanted to focus on one in particular. Yeah, here it is. I can show you an image. I want to talk about the woman sitting right here. just read out loud about Vera Menchik. In photographs, Vera Menchik is pictured smiling sweetly with nary a mean bone in her body, but her tournament records and game scores depict a different Vera. Beneath this gentle veneer was a trailblazer who raised the bar for women's chess. Vera Menchik was the first woman to compete seriously against top male professionals. Born in Moscow in 1906 to a Czech father and a British mother, Vera learned chess from her father when she was 9 years old. Early on, she played in a club tournament among boys and finished in 3rd place, which she later said gave birth to my sporting spirit. Despite this early show of chess talent, Vera's main passions were for literature and theater, not chess. Vera came from a comfortable family and shared a 6-room apartment with her father, mother, and sister Olga. Vera was 11 years old at the time of the 1917 Russian Revolution, after which Vera and her family were forced to share their ample space with neighbors. A friend of Vera's described what happened. People from below came up, bringing their goats and fowls with them. Below was the forbidden land to her sister and herself, and of course extra fascinating on that account. People lived in these basements in great poverty. They had earth floors, and the children were terribly dirty and ill cared for. Unhappy with these changes in lifestyle, the Menchik family decided to emigrate. The family settled in Hastings, a seaside city in England. Teenage Vera, shy by nature and struggling to become fluent in English, found her interest in chess flourishing as her loneliness deepened. Chess is a quiet game, she pointed out, a perfect activity for someone who does not speak the language. Vera began to play regularly, in spite of the critics who were concerned that the deep silence and smoke is not appropriate for a young woman. Hastings was a lucky place for Vera to settle. The Hastings Chess Club was one of the most well-established in England, founded in 1882. International tournaments were held there each year, attracting some of the best players on the continent and in England. Vera joined the club in 1923 and soon caught the attention of a Hungarian player, Kisa Maraksi. Maraksi began to train her. It was a good match, and Vera improved quickly, developing a patient style similar to Maraksi's. Unlike Vera, most women players were not systematically trained at the time, and Vera Menchik soon became dominant among women. By 1925, she was unquestionably the strongest female player in England, having defeated the second best player, Edith Price, in 2 matches. And here we have another image of Vera Menchik playing in a tournament. You can see she's sitting here in the picture, and she is playing in a tournament in London in 1932. Okay, let me see. In 1927, she got a chance to test herself on the world stage. The first ever Women's World Championship was to be held in London. 16 women from 7 countries would participate in the round robin, which was scheduled in conjunction with the first Men's World's team competition. Vera swept through the tournament, ceding only 1 draw. She won the next 6 Women's World Championships held in Hamburg, Prague, Folkestone, Warsaw, Stockholm, she played in this championship. She won 64, drew 4, and lost only 1. Vera was miles ahead of the competition in women's chess, but thirsty for more distinctions. Victories over women don't satisfy me anymore. I want to drink men's blood. I think that's a good quote to end off with. And then you can see here is another picture of Vera Menchik, where she had just won her first world championship for women, but wanted to play men instead. And I think we should stop for now, but I can tell you that she did end up playing men. She even beat a world champion, not just once but twice. And a club was founded, not a club with a physical location, but it was called the Vera Menchik's Club. And the members of this club were all the men who had lost to Vera Menchik. She did get a a very tragic end. She died in World War II during a bombing from the Nazis. But I can tell you more about that another time, where we can also take a look at one of her beautiful games. Did you hear that? I think one of the grandmasters next to me just lost on time, and he knocked over his pieces in frustration. They should know better. But let me just show you how these old chess clocks work, because these are the ones that are at the library. It is a very old library we had, and in this library there are no electronics. There are no digital clocks as the one most players use today. Instead, they use these. And it works like this. Both players will have a separate clock. And in the back here, you can turn this to decide how much time you want. You can even, sometimes the clock, they need to be pulled up like this. I think this is good. This should be pulled a little bit more. Like so. And we can see that now the time is set for 10 minutes each. But I wanted to show you what happens once a player loses on time. So let me go like this. Now, you can see that the player over here, their time is running very low. You can see that because the red wing in the top has been lifted, and once it falls down, the player will lose on time. So let's see what that will look like. We can hear the beautiful sound of the chess clock. And I remember these clocks, they're a little bit more tricky because you don't know exactly how many seconds you have left. The wing can fall at any moment. Oh, do you see that? The wing fell down, and thus this player would have lost on time. That's why you should always pay attention to how much time you have left on your clock. And you must either checkmate or get your opponent to resign or lose on time before your time runs out. I want to take a look at the very last chess book I bought for us today. It is the smallest one and probably also the oldest one in this pile. This one is called Die Praxis meines System by Aaron Nimzowitsch. Maybe you heard about his book, Mein watch what I found in the very first page. Do you see this? This is an image. It's not an image actually, it's a postcard. And I wanted to show you this one. This is Aron Nimzowitsch himself. It is a photograph of him, in black and white of course. And it says on the front, it says Merry Christmas and Happy New Year in Danish. Because while Nimzowitsch was born in Latvia, later on he moved to Copenhagen, Denmark, where he lived for the last many years of his life. And on the other side you can see that there's a postcard. You can see the stamp up here in the corner. And maybe you can see it, it's very small, but there's a signature on the bottom, it says Nimzowitsch. We can also see that this postcard was sent in Copenhagen back on 1930, December 18th. So it was sent just a few days before Christmas, almost 100 years ago, 94 years ago. So I think this is quite cool, and I'm gonna put it back in the book so the next guest at the library also gets a chance to watch this kind of cool jazz souvenir. But let's put up the pieces and play through one of his games. See if we can find a game that is not too long. I'm just gonna put the postcard here, maybe here next to me, while I look at the game with you. Let's see. Here we can see all the games. There is a list of when they were played in which cities and what year. Oh, he played a lot of games. He played Capablanca, Marshall, Tartakower, Rubinstein. This is amazing. Okay. So the first chapter or Abschnitte is called Dezentralisierung. Once again, I apologize for my German, but I do believe this has to do with centralizing your pieces. So let's see if we can find a game on this. There are several games to choose from. Let's pick this one. This is game number 2, played in London in 1927, and Nimzowitsch had the black pieces against Bogoljubov with the white pieces, who played c2 to c4. And Nimzowitsch responded with e7 to e6. This is the English opening. Knight knight c3, knight f6, and e4. Then Nimzowitsch played c7 to c5, and g2 to g3. What we see so far is how both players are trying to control the center of the board with their pawns. White has a pawn in the middle. Also, this pawn is controlling d5. Black is controlling d4 with this pawn, and d5 with the pawn on e6. Here, Nimzowitsch continued to play in the center of the board with d5. And his opponent passed with e4 to e5, d5 to d4, and now of course white can capture this knight, and this is what happened. But Nimzowitsch, he can also capture a knight here on c3, which he of course did. Then there's a comment I do not understand exactly. It gives another line. Maybe it thinks that something was an inaccuracy here. Oh, because here, oh yes, here white captured with this pawn, like this. And I think Nimzowitsch argues that white should have taken with this pawn to capture towards the center. Because after this he says that queen takes f6 is quite strong for black. Because now white has these double pawns and no pawns left in the center. Knight g1 to f3 happened. Then h3, preventing this bishop from going to g5. So instead, white played bishop d2, then bishop d7, and knight to d2. This maybe looks a little bit weird, blocking in the bishop in c1, but it's actually, it has a few points. One of them is that the bishop here in g2 is now threatening to take the pawn on b7 and then take the rook on e8. Also, this knight might want to jump into the middle of the board, attacking the queen on f6. Okay, so this bishop went to c6. And in this position, white responded with this other move that we looked at, knight e4, attacking the queen. But the queen here, she moved to g6, making a counterattack on the white knight, which is now attacked by two pieces and only defended by the bishop on g2. And white defended it another time with the queen, queen e2. Black played bishop e7, preparing to castle, which is what both players did at this time. Castle and castle. Okay, this is move 13 for both players. Now white played a very aggressive move, h4. But I see that Nimzowitsch does not approve of this move. He gives it, I think he gives it like an interesting remark, but he says that it is neglecting of the center. Of course, h4 is very far from the center of the board, and this is not how you should play chess according to Nimzowitsch. Nimzowitsch played f5, attacking the knight and also gaining more control over the center. The knight went back to d2. I guess it was the only option, right? Yes, everywhere else it can be taken. So it went back to d2, but once again this bishop, it's blocked. And you should be very careful about blocking your pieces. Okay. Knight d2, bishop takes g2, okay. Nimzowitsch decided to make this trade, which makes sense often when your opponent makes a fianchetto bishop, putting the bishop in front of the king and then castling. It will often become a very important defensive piece, so trading it off definitely makes some sense. Now he could continue developing, so taking on d2 was also in order to clear the c6 square for the knight. And notice how black is now fully developed. Nimzowitsch has castled, and there's connection between the rooks, and he also has control over all the squares in the middle of the board. d5 is controlled by this pawn. e5 is controlled by this knight. d4 is controlled by the pawn and the knight. And e4 is controlled by the pawn and also the queen. After this, his opponent put his knight on... Oh, sorry, no, it went to f3 in order to open up for this bishop and c1, this poor bishop that hasn't joined the game yet. But Nimzowitsch now played the move f5 to f4, and we can really see that this white king, he is getting maybe into some troubles, because the queen, the black queen, is in the same file, meaning that white will not be able to capture this pawn. He could of course capture it with the bishop, but that would be a big blunder, because black would then be able to take the bishop, thus winning a bishop only for a pawn. That's a pretty good deal. So, by playing f4, he really stops this bishop from going to f4. He also stops it from going to e3, so it can only really develop to d2, which is maybe not the most fun place to put it. So instead, his opponent played rook f1 to e1, and now Nimzowitsch tried to add pressure on the king side by playing rook f6. Okay, maybe it's adding pressure to the king side. Maybe it actually has more to do, which is protecting this pawn, which of course was attacked now twice. His opponent put his queen on e4, centralizing the queen, of course, but maybe it can also become vulnerable. Nimzowitsch captured on g3, making this king's shield of pawns a little less protective. He took back, oh no, oh he didn't take back, sorry. F takes g3. Oh, you did. I did. F takes g3. And bishop d3. What a beautiful move. Of course, gaining more control in the center, but also attacking g3. Both the bishops and the queen are ready to take here. What happened? as an attempt to save the g-pawn. But the king, this white king, he's not so well protected anymore. And now Nimzovich decided it was time to trade queens. So he took like this. His opponent took back, of course. And now he doubled his rooks in the f-file, threatening the knight on f3. His opponent defended with the rook a3, but then came rook f4, and that is a problem, I believe, because it is threatening here. It is also threatening here. And white cannot capture on e6, as the knight then would hang. So white has to do something else. He played g4 to g5. Maybe saying that now if black captures this pawn or this pawn, then white could actually take the pawn on e6. But Nimzovich decided to not take a pawn just yet. Instead, he gave this check on g4, and the white king moved to h1. Maybe you want to ask why not go to h3, but this would be a big mistake, as black could now give this check. This rook is defended by the bishop on d6, and once the king moves, the rook could capture here with a discovered attack, and black would win a piece. So this is why the king went to h1, in order not to get a check on d3. Now Nimzovich played h7, h6 takes, g5. His opponent recaptured with the pawn. h4 captures d5. And then he played king. Wow, king f7, what a beautiful move. Do you see that here? Maybe you want to say that it's protecting this pawn. And that's true, but it's actually not the idea behind the move. The idea, of course, is to put this rook on h8, making a checkmate. Because if this rook goes to h8, the knight could, of course, block, but then the rook would be able to capture, as it would be defended by the bishop. So white is in all sorts of trouble now. And he played this move. Knight g1. It's not a pretty move, but this way you're actually able to block the checkmate, which is what happened. Rook h8, check. And what did he put in between? Because the king cannot move, of course. So he played this knight to g3. This cannot be captured, so the white rook can capture back. But this time he played king e7. And I'm actually not sure about why he played this. Maybe it will become clear in a second. But I'm not sure why the king should go there. Maybe in order to not allow white to give a check with the pawn, but oh yeah, maybe that would be it. Maybe because white is threatening to give this check, and if the black king captures, you could take an e6. But even that looks suspicious, as black would still be threatening checkmate on h3. So I'm actually struggling a little bit to understand the meaning behind king e7, but maybe we'll find out in the next move. He f4. Ah, now I think I see the point. So, bishop f4. If the king had still been here on f7, white would be able to pin the bishop. But with the king on e7, that doesn't really make so much sense. I mean, it can still be played, and it happened. But this time it's not a pin. And now the final move was actually knight e5. And white resigned. Let's just take a final look at the position and see if we can understand why he chose to resign in this position. The rook is under attack. If the rook goes back to f2 or f1, the rook here will capture an h3 with checkmate. The rook cannot go here, it will be taken. Cannot go here, it will be taken. Cannot go here, it will be taken. And if white were to capture here, then black would quite simply just take the rook. And of course, if rook takes, black will not take here, but black will instead take here and make checkmate. So this was a very beautiful game by the great Aaron Nimzovich, showing why controlling the center is very important, and you shouldn't lash out with moves like h4 if you don't have control in the center and your piece is fully developed. Let me just set up the board so it's ready for the next guests at the library. So I'm very glad that you wanted to join me for today's study session. And I hope you liked the books that I found at the library. And I hope you liked the atmosphere of this old secret chess library. I want to tell you that you're always welcome back. There are, as I mentioned, so many books to be studied. And I can find a new selection for next time. For now, let's just put this photograph, this postcard of Nimzovich back in the book. And I will make sure that these books go back on the white shelves. And I will bring my notebook with me. This doesn't belong in the library. I will take this with me when I go home. But I'll bring it for next time if you want to join me again. So for now, I just want to say thank you, and I hope to see you soon in the chess library.